Hello everyone, and welcome back to Romance Rewind Stories. Before we dive into today's incredible story, I have a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying these heartwarming tales, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. It's quick, it's free, and it's the best way to support us in bringing you more emotional romance stories. And here's something I'd love to know. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments below. I always enjoy seeing our amazing community from around the world. Oh, and if this story touches your heart, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us grow and reach more people who love these kinds of tales. Now let's get into today's story. He thought it was just a blind date, until she said, "You don't remember me, do you?" Jasper Thorne sat at the corner table of Angelina's, an upscale Italian restaurant in downtown Seattle, nursing his second glass of wine and wondering for the 100th time why he'd agreed to this blind date. At 41, Jasper had built Thorne Industries into a $10 billion empire, transforming his late father's struggling manufacturing company into a tech powerhouse. He'd accomplished everything he'd set out to do professionally. Personally, though, his life was a desert of solitude and workaholic habits. His sister Maya had set up this date, insisting that he needed to rejoin the human race and stop using board meetings as a substitute for actual relationships. Jasper had finally relented, mostly to get her to stop leaving dating app brochures on his desk. The restaurant door opened, and Jasper looked up out of habit. A woman entered, tall, slender, with auburn hair that caught the candlelight and fell in soft waves past her shoulders. She wore a simple black dress that was elegant without being ostentatious, and when her eyes scanned the restaurant, landing on him, Jasper felt an unexpected jolt of recognition, except he couldn't place where he knew her from. She walked toward his table with confidence, a small smile playing at her lips. Something about that smile stirred a memory Jasper couldn't quite grasp, like a word on the tip of his tongue that refused to materialize. "Jasper Thorne," she said, extending her hand. "It's been a long time." He stood automatically, shaking her hand, noting the warmth of her skin, the firmness of her grip. "I'm sorry. You have me at a disadvantage. You know who I am, obviously, but you don't remember me," she finished, her smile widening slightly. There was something in her eyes, amusement mixed with something deeper, sadder. "That's okay, I expected that. I'm Ember Hayes." Jasper repeated the name silently, searching his memory. Hayes. It sounded familiar, but he couldn't. "Please sit," he said, covering his confusion with practiced politeness. "I have to admit, I thought this was a completely blind date. My sister Maya set it up. She didn't mention that we'd met before." "We didn't exactly meet, not formally anyway." Ember sat gracefully, accepting the menu the waiter brought over. "This must be strange for you. I'm sorry. I should have told Maya to give you a heads up." "Strange, yes, but intriguing." Jasper studied her face more carefully, looking for clues. She was beautiful, that was undeniable. Late 30s, he'd guess, with the kind of classical features that suggested she'd been stunning her entire life. But it was her eyes that caught him. Green with flecks of gold, intelligent and observant, holding secrets he suddenly wanted to uncover. "So you're going to make me guess?" he asked. "Would you like to? Or should I just tell you?" "Tell me. Please. The suspense is killing me, and I have a feeling if I start guessing, I'll embarrass myself." Ember set down her menu, folding her hands on the table. 15 years ago, you were giving a guest lecture at Seattle University, Business Ethics and Corporate Responsibility. I was a junior, sitting in the third row, completely starstruck by this young CEO who'd just turned his father's dying company around. A memory stirred. Jasper had given that lecture. one of only a few he'd done during that period when he was being lauded as a wunderkind business genius. He'd been 26, cocky with recent success, probably insufferable to be around. "I remember that lecture," he said slowly. "But I don't remember you specifically. I'm sorry, there were probably 200 students there." 217, Ember said. "I counted, and you wouldn't remember me specifically because we never actually spoke. But after the lecture, there was a Q&A session. I had my hand up the entire time, desperately wanting to ask you about sustainable manufacturing practices and how they could be implemented without sacrificing profit margins. You never called on me." Jasper felt heat creep up his neck, embarrassment or something else. "I'm sorry, that was rude of me." "You were fielding questions from mostly male students who were asking about stock options and acquisition strategies. I don't think you even saw my hand." Ember's tone wasn't bitter, just matter of fact. "But that's not the important part." "What's the important part?" "After the lecture ended, you were surrounded by students and professors wanting to network. I waited for about 20 minutes, hoping for a chance to introduce myself and ask my question. Eventually, your assistant, a stern woman with a clipboard, started ushering people away because you had another meeting. I was about to leave when I saw you drop your phone as you were getting into your car." The memory clicked into place with startling clarity. Jasper could suddenly see it. The parking lot outside the business school, his phone clattering to the pavement, the screen shattering. He'd been running late for a meeting with potential investors, frustrated by how long the university event had run. "A girl ran after me," Jasper said slowly, the memory sharpening. "Young woman. She picked up my phone and chased my car down. We'd already started pulling away, but she was waving her arms and my driver stopped." "That was me," Ember confirmed. "You rolled down your window and I handed you your phone. Do you remember what you said?" Jasper searched his memory. What had he said? He'd been so focused on the investor meeting, so distracted by the cracked screen, so annoyed by the delay. "I don't remember," he admitted, feeling a growing sense of dread. "But I have a feeling I wasn't particularly gracious about it. You said, 'Thanks. You should be more careful. These things are expensive.'" Ember delivered the words without inflection, but Jasper could hear the implied quotation marks, the precise memory of his dismissive tone. He closed his eyes briefly, mortification washing over him. "I said that to someone who'd just run after my car to return my phone." "You did. Then your driver pulled away, and that was that. The whole interaction lasted maybe 30 seconds. Ember, I don't know what to say. I was an arrogant ass. I'm so sorry. You were 26 and incredibly successful. Arrogance probably came with the territory." Ember took a sip of the water the waiter had poured. "But do you want to know the strangest part? That moment, that 30-second interaction, where you basically told me to be more careful with your phone that I'd retrieved for you, that moment changed my life." Jasper stared at her. "How could that possibly have changed your life?" "Because I was so angry," Ember said simply. "I went back to my dorm room absolutely furious, not just at you, but at the entire system that created people like you, people who could dismiss the effort of others so casually because they were important and busy, and the rest of us were just obstacles in their way." "Ember, let me finish. Please." She held up a hand. "I channeled that anger into action. I'd been planning to get a business degree and maybe work in corporate sustainability, but I realized that wouldn't be enough. So I changed my major to environmental engineering. I got a master's degree in renewable energy systems. I spent the next 15 years building a company that develops affordable solar technology for low-income communities." Jasper's eyes widened. "Hayes Solar. You're that Ember Hayes?" "I am. We've been on the market for 7 years now. We're not as big as Thorn Industries, obviously, but we've installed solar systems in over 50,000 homes that couldn't otherwise afford them. We've created jobs, reduced carbon emissions, and proven that sustainable business can be profitable." Jasper sat back, absolutely floored. Hayes Solar was a company he'd been watching with professional interest for years. They were doing innovative work, disrupting the traditional solar market with new financing models and community-based installation programs. He'd even considered approaching them about a potential partnership, and the founder, the brilliant woman he'd read about in business journals, was sitting across from him, the same woman he'd dismissed 15 years ago after she'd done him a favor. "So you built an entire company because I was rude to you in a parking lot?" "Not because you were rude, despite you being rude. Jasper, you represented everything I wanted to change about the business world. The callousness, the elevation of profit over people, the assumption that being successful meant you could treat others as less important. I wanted to prove that there was another way, that you could build a thriving company while actually giving a damn about your impact on the world and the people in it." The waiter appeared to take their order, and Jasper mechanically ordered something, he had no idea what, while his mind reeled. When they were alone again, he said, "I don't understand. If that's how you felt about me, if I represented everything you wanted to fight against, why are you here? Why did you agree to this date?" Ember's expression softened. "Because Maya called me 3 weeks ago. She's on the board of the Renewable Energy Coalition that I speak at regularly. We've become friendly over the years. She told me she was trying to set you up on a blind date because you'd become a workaholic hermit, her words, and asked if I'd be interested. And you said yes? Even knowing it was me?" "I said yes because Maya also told me something else. She told me that 5 years ago, you completely restructured Thorn Industries to prioritize sustainable manufacturing and ethical labor practices. That you took a significant financial hit in the short term because you refused to work with suppliers who didn't meet your environmental and human rights standards. That you've become one of the leading advocates for corporate responsibility in the tech manufacturing sector." Jasper shifted uncomfortably. He didn't like talking about those changes. They felt like penance for years of only caring about profit margins. "I did what I should have done from the beginning. You did what most CEOs never do. You changed. You learned. You became better." Ember leaned forward slightly. "Maya told me you're not the same man you were 15 years ago. I was curious to see if that was true. So here I am." "And what's the verdict? Am I different enough to make up for being an ass in a parking lot?" Ember laughed, a genuine, warm sound that transformed her entire face. "I don't know yet. That's what this date is for, isn't it? To find out who you are now. That seems only fair. Though I feel like I'm at a severe disadvantage here. You've spent 15 years thinking about that encounter. I'd completely forgotten it until you reminded me. To be fair, it was probably one of 1,000 similar interactions for you that day. For me, it was personal and pivotal. Different perspectives. Their food arrived. Jasper still wasn't sure what he'd ordered, and they ate in companionable silence for a few minutes. Jasper found himself studying Ember, trying to reconcile this accomplished, fascinating woman with the memory of a young student he'd barely noticed 15 years ago. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally. "Of course. You said you had a question that day about sustainable manufacturing practices and profit margins. Do you remember what it was?" Ember's eyes lit up. "I do, actually. I wanted to ask whether you thought companies had a moral obligation to prioritize sustainability, even when it meant lower short-term profits, or whether the responsibility was on consumers and governments to create incentives that made sustainable practices financially viable." "That's a complex question. What would you have wanted me to say?" "I would have wanted you to say that companies had a moral obligation. That profit couldn't be the only consideration. That we have a responsibility to the planet and to future generations." "And what do you think I would have said? The 26-year-old version of me?" Ember considered this. Honestly, I think you would have given some politic answer about shareholder value and market forces. You would have said all the right things without really committing to anything meaningful. You're probably right. That's depressing. Don't be depressed. People change. You changed. What changed you? Jasper asked. Besides my rudeness, I mean. What kept you going for 15 years building Hayes Solar? Ember set down her fork, her expression becoming more serious. My younger sister, Willow. She has severe asthma, has since she was a kid. We grew up in an industrial area of Tacoma, where the air quality was terrible. She was in and out of hospitals constantly. My parents couldn't always afford her medications. It was really hard. I'm sorry. Is she okay now? She's doing better. We moved her to a better area with cleaner air, and she's on better medication now. But those years of watching her struggle, knowing that environmental pollution was making it worse, knowing that the companies responsible didn't care because it wasn't affecting their bottom line, that's what really drove me. Your rudeness was the spark. Willow's suffering was the fuel. Jasper felt something shift in his chest. I changed Thorn Industries because of my nephew, he said quietly. Maya's son, Connor, he was diagnosed with cancer when he was 7, leukemia. The doctors said it might have been linked to environmental toxins. There's a cluster of childhood cancers in the area where one of our old suppliers was dumping chemicals illegally. Oh, Jasper, he's fine now, in remission for 3 years, but it was... Jasper's voice caught. It was the worst 2 years of my life, and knowing that my company might have played even a small role in creating the environmental conditions that made kids sick, I couldn't live with that. So I changed everything. It cost us billions in the short term. We lost contracts. Investors pulled out. The board threatened to oust me, but I didn't care. I couldn't keep building an empire on practices that were literally poisoning children. Ember reached across the table and took his hand. The gesture was spontaneous, warm, and Jasper felt the touch reverberate through him. I'm glad Connor is okay, she said softly. I'm glad Willow is too. They sat like that for a moment, hands clasped across the table, the noise of the restaurant fading into background static. When Ember finally pulled her hand back, Jasper felt the loss of contact acutely. So, Ember said, her tone lighter now. We've established that we're both driven by family tragedy to build ethical companies. We're basically the same person, Jasper laughed. When you put it that way, we sound pretty depressing. Or pretty compatible, depends on your perspective. Are you saying you think we're compatible? Even though I was terrible to you 15 years ago, I'm saying you were terrible to a version of me that doesn't exist anymore, and I judged a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe the current versions of us could be compatible. That's the whole point of first dates, right? To find out? I thought this was a revenge date, Jasper said. Your chance to make me feel guilty about being an arrogant 26-year-old. Oh, is that what you thought? Ember's eyes sparkled with mischief. No. If I wanted revenge, I would have showed up, reminded you of the parking lot incident, and then walked out leaving you with the bill. This, she gestured between them, this is genuine curiosity. You've intrigued me, Jasper Thorn. Current version. The feeling is mutual. Ember Hayes' current version is extraordinary. Flattery will get you everywhere. I hope so, because I'd really like to see you again. If you're open to that. Ember tilted her head, studying him. Tell me something first. If we'd actually met 15 years ago, if I'd asked my question and you'd answered it and we'd had a real conversation, do you think anything would have come of it? Jasper thought about this seriously. Honestly? Probably not. I was so focused on building the company, so obsessed with success and reputation, I wouldn't have had time for a relationship with anyone, let alone a college student who challenged my assumptions about business. I would have been intimidated by you and covered it with dismissiveness. So maybe the timing was wrong then, but maybe it's right now. Maybe it is. Ember signaled the waiter for the check. I'll tell you what, I'm willing to give this a shot to see if the current versions of us work together, but I have one condition. Name it. You have to let me ask you the question I didn't get to ask 15 years ago, and you have to answer it honestly. Done. Ask me. Ember's expression became serious. Jasper Thorne, do you believe companies have a moral obligation to prioritize sustainability and ethical practices even when it means lower short-term profits? Or do you think the responsibility is on consumers and governments to create the incentives? Jasper met her eyes steadily. I believe companies have an absolute moral obligation to prioritize sustainability and ethics above profit. Period. Full stop. Because profit that comes at the expense of people's health, the planet's well-being, or human dignity isn't really profit, it's theft. We're stealing from future generations, from vulnerable communities, from the planet itself, and no amount of shareholder value justifies that theft. Ember smiled, a radiant, genuine smile that made Jasper's breath catch. Good answer. Did I pass the test? With flying colors. So yes, Jasper, I'd love to see you again. They left the restaurant together, walking out into the cool Seattle night. Jasper's driver was waiting, but Jasper waved him off, wanting to extend this evening as long as possible. Can I walk you to your car? He asked. I took a rideshare. Parking in this neighborhood is terrible. Then let me drive you home, please. I promise I won't drop my phone and blame you for it. Ember laughed. Okay, but only because that joke was terrible enough to deserve a pity ride home. In the car, they continued talking about their companies, their families, their hopes for the future. Jasper learned that Ember was an amateur astronomer who spent weekends at a telescope she'd built herself, that she spoke 3 languages fluently and was learning a 4th, that she had a cat named Ohm who only responded to physics puns. Ember learned that Jasper played piano to decompress from work stress, that he'd been in therapy for the past 3 years learning to not be a workaholic, that he volunteered at a children's hospital where Connor had been treated. When they arrived at Ember's brownstone in Capitol Hill, neither of them moved to get out of the car immediately. Thank you for tonight, Jasper said, for giving me a chance despite our history, for being honest about what happened, for not letting me stay in my comfortable ignorance. Thank you for being someone worth giving a chance to, for changing, for becoming better. Ember, I have to ask, did you really spend 15 years thinking about that parking lot encounter, or were you exaggerating for effect? Ember smiled. Not 15 years constantly, but it did stick with me. It became a sort of touchstone, a reminder of why I was doing what I was doing. Every time I wanted to give up on Hayes Solar, every time the funding fell through or a project failed, I'd think about that moment and recommit. So yes, it mattered. You mattered, even though you didn't know it. I'm sorry it took me so long to become someone worthy of mattering. Don't be. We all get there in our own time. Ember leaned over and kissed his cheek, a brief, soft contact that sent electricity through Jasper's entire body. Good night, Jasper. Good night, Ember. When can I see you again? Call me tomorrow. We'll figure it out. Jasper watched her walk into her building, a silhouette against the warm light of the entryway. When she disappeared inside, he leaned back against the car seat and let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. His phone buzzed, a text from Maya. How did it go? Jasper typed back. She was the girl I was rude to in a parking lot 15 years ago. I'm an idiot. Also, I think I'm in love. Maya's response came immediately. What? Call me right now. But Jasper didn't call his sister. Instead, he texted Ember, I know I'm supposed to wait until tomorrow to call, but I can't stop thinking about you. When's the soonest you're free? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, breakfast tomorrow? There's a place near my office that makes incredible omelets. I'll pick you up at 7. It's a date. 6 months later, Jasper stood in the Hayes Solar offices, looking at the wall where Ember had hung photos documenting the company's history. There was one he'd never noticed before, a newspaper clipping from 15 years ago showing him leaving the Seattle University campus after his guest lecture. "I kept that," Ember said, appearing at his shoulder. "As motivation. I wanted to remember what I was fighting against. And now I keep it to remember that people can change, that the arrogant 26-year-old in that photo became someone I actually like, love even." Jasper turned to face her. They'd spent the past 6 months getting to know each other, really know each other. Coffee dates that turned into dinner dates that turned into weekends spent together, conversations that lasted until dawn, shared dreams of building something bigger than either of their individual companies. "I love you too," Jasper said, "and I have an idea I want to run by you." "What kind of idea?" "Thorn Industries and Hayes Solar, a partnership. We combine your solar technology with our manufacturing capabilities, create a new division focused on affordable renewable energy systems. You'd run it, full autonomy, your vision, but with the resources of a company my size." Ember's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Completely. I've been thinking about it for months. We could make a real difference, Ember. Take what you've built and scale it exponentially. That's an incredible offer. But Jasper, I need to be honest. Part of me wants to say yes immediately. The other part is terrified of losing Hayes Solar's identity, of becoming subsumed into something bigger. Then we structure it so that doesn't happen. You maintain creative and strategic control. We're partners, not a merger where one company consumes the other. Ember, I'm not asking you to give up what you built. I'm asking you to amplify it." Ember studied his face, searching for something. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, let's do it. But I have one condition." "What's that?" "The first solar installation of this new partnership. It goes to low-income housing in Tacoma, where I grew up, where Willow got sick. Done. And I'll add a condition of my own." "What?" "That you'll move in with me. Not because of the business partnership, but because I hate spending nights without you. Because I want to wake up next to you every morning. Because I'm 41 years old, and I finally found someone who makes me want to be a better person. And I don't want to waste another day." Ember laughed, tears glistening in her eyes. "That's the least business-like condition I've ever heard in a partnership negotiation. This isn't a business negotiation. This is me telling the woman I love that I want to build a life with her. The business stuff is just a bonus. Then yes, to all of it. The partnership, moving in together, building a life." Yes, Jasper kissed her long and deep and thought about the strange path that had brought them here. A parking lot encounter 15 years ago, a dropped phone and a dismissive comment. Years of resentment transformed into motivation, a blind date that wasn't blind at all. And now this, a partnership in business and life with someone who challenged him, inspired him, and loved the person he'd become. "Can I tell you something?" Jasper murmured against her lips. "Always. I'm glad I was rude to you in that parking lot." Ember pulled back, eyebrows raised. "That's a weird thing to be glad about. Not because you didn't deserve better, you absolutely did. But because if I hadn't been, you might not have channeled that anger into building Hayes Solar. You might not have become who you are, and while I wish I could go back and be kinder to that college student, I can't regret anything that led to you standing here with me right now." "That's a very philosophical take on your past jerkiness." "I'm a reformed jerk. We're very philosophical." Ember kissed him again. "I'm glad too. Not that you were rude. That part still sucked. But glad that it mattered, that it led somewhere. That 15 years later you became someone worth forgiving, worth loving, because sometimes the worst moments create the best outcomes. Sometimes a 30-second encounter in a parking lot plants seeds that take 15 years to bloom." And sometimes the person you barely noticed becomes the person you can't imagine living without, proving that it's never too late to remember, to change, and to become someone worthy of the second chances we never knew we needed. And that's where our story ends today. What did you think? Did Jasper and Ember's story of forgotten encounters becoming unforgettable love touch your heart? Let us know in the comments what your favorite moment was. If you enjoyed this story, we have so many more waiting for you. Check out our playlist for more heartwarming romance tales that will make you believe in love all over again. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification bell, and give us a thumbs up. Your support means everything to us. Until next time, keep believing in love, keep believing in second chances, and remember, the best stories are the ones that remind us we all deserve our happily ever after. See you in the next story.